and press the bell icon. Never miss an update.
Namaste, konnichiwa. Welcome to the 𝗧cie𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗂𝗧 show. And today we have very special guest.
Professor Tomohiko Taniguchi.
And we will be discussing about what is going to happen, who will be our next prime minister. Welcome to the 𝗧cie𝗵𝗶𝗂𝗧 show once again.
Thank you very much. Good to see you again.
Thank you. And as we see, in news and newspaper that LDP has selected 9 candidates. So you have already served, and especially Abbe-san's as a friend. If I consider you, if we forget that special advisor and the speechwriter, even as a friend, close friend of Abbe-san's, late Honorable Prime Minister Abbe. So how do you see that these days, what actually LDP is doing and how they're selecting candidates?
Right. The outcome of this race is going to be very much important, also for India-Japan relations. Some of the candidates are experienced in terms of foreign policy. Others are not. Some are determined to build Japan's arsenal, military. Others are not. So there is a divide among those candidates, and the results of the race will therefore be very much important also for Delhi-Tokyo relations. That said, the Japanese ruling party is the biggest party for both houses, lower and upper house. If chosen as the LDP's leader, party's leader, it is automatic, isn't it?
Yeah,
that she is going to be elected then by the parliaments, the upper house and the lower house. As a caveat, constitutionally speaking, the chosen candidate must finally be endorsed and recognized with an imperial seal by His Majesty the Emperor. Once in every 3 years, Japanese LDP's leader must face contest, whether she could stay as president of the LDP or someone else has to replace the incumbent leader with the new one. And September this month, is going to be the term limit for the incumbent Prime Minister Kishida. 7 months ago, if you had asked me whether Prime Minister Kishida would be stepping down as Prime Minister, I would have said it would be unlikely. But something unlikely actually happened. As a result of his own strong purge policies towards his colleagues within the LDP due to political fundraising party financial scandals. So that's where we are. LDP, the Liberal Democratic Party of Japan, has been in office for many decades, as you know. But for the first time in the party's history, you have as many as 9 candidates, 2 women and 2 in the 40s, and the rest are also very much domestically as well as internationally known politicians. And come at the end of this month, party members, rank and file grassroots members of the LDP will cast their votes and the number of votes will be huge. And that huge number is going to be distributed along with something called DAUNT method. I'm not going to go detail into that. You can check it up with Wiki. DAUNT. That's the name of a Belgian political scientist come mathematician. And the members of the parliament, both houses, LDP members of the both houses will cast her vote. Each one of them will cast her vote. Combined, you get the results. The conventional wisdom at the moment holds that there will be no clear single winner after
Oh.
the first round of votes.
Mhm.
So it may be likely that
Mhm.
two strong candidates will remain, and there will be a matchup between these two candidates. And
Mhm.
the second selection process is going to be entirely conducted by the parliamentarians, lawmakers themselves, not involving grassroots members of the LDP.
Mhm. So this time, especially the two female candidates we can see. So do you think Japan will support them? Because this is kind of first time if they win, Japan will have female prime minister. How do you think Japan will react?
You're asking, Nipper, how will Japan react? Note, please, this is not a national, federal process. This is a family affairs, strictly within the LDP. Concerns and worries widely held by the members of the LDP are the following. Sooner rather than later, the newly chosen prime minister will likely dissolve Japanese lower house, then call for snap elections. Next year, 2025, it is already scheduled that the upper house is going to face its own election. So you're talking about two important national elections. Whether this leader or that leader could be a good campaigner behind whom we could rally our campaigns and we could uh, win as many seats as possible for the upcoming elections. So that's the primary concern for the members of the LDP. The members of the LDP will likely choose strictly from that yardstick who is going to be the strongest leader, who could lead the pack and who could gain more seats than others. If you adopt that yardstick, it is not unnatural, it is rather natural for them to have someone very new, someone very fresh, someone very refreshing, or someone very strong. And at the moment, two female candidates, the names of which the name of whom are Sanae Takaichi surname, Sanae given name, and
Kamikawa-san.
Yoko Kamikawa family name, Yoko given name. One is Science and Technology Minister, Takaichi, Kamikawa Foreign Minister.
Yes.
Interestingly, both female candidates are busy presenting their images as someone countable, as someone determined, as someone who could deliver. So it is not so much a matter whether the candidate to be chosen is a man or woman. What's more important is for the LDP members to have a strong leader who could win the upcoming elections.
Yes, very rightly you said. And last time also, 3 years ago, Kono Taro-san, he also contested. And this time also he is doing. So again, definitely, last time Kishida-san became prime minister. Do you think Taro-san gained that confidence, which that time he did not have?
I cannot say so, because poll after poll, the newspaper companies and broadcasting networks are very much busy taking poll after another, almost on a daily basis. And you see those results of those polls, and according to the results of those polls, Mr. Kono is far from popular. His popularity ratings remain something like single digit, whereas Ishiba
Yeah.
and Takaichi and Koizumi, these three candidates are at the moment most popular, more popular than other candidates. But when it comes to Mr. Kono, who, with his command in English, good English, is relatively, or disproportionately, may I say, well known by the international community and by the members of the Foreign Press Corps, for instance, based in Tokyo. But polls results show that he must face an uphill struggle.
Where, yeah, I also could see that, every day is, yeah. So here you took like three candidates who are more popular, at least the newspaper and the social media, which actually the reports are coming. So Koizumi-san is kind of the youngest among them, but he's popular. So, and I think since so close with Abe-san, you have seen the Koizumi-san, I think, working, or before that also joining the party. So personally, even, do you have, like, how did you see him? How would you like to see him as a prime minister, personally?
Mr. Koizumi, still in his early 40s,
40s, yes.
yes, would be the youngest prime minister if chosen. He has inherited positive image assets from his own father, who was Japan's prime minister in the early 2000s, when George W. Bush was then US president. George W. Bush and Mr. Koizumi, Junichiro Koizumi, then Japanese prime minister, were extremely on good terms. They played catch, baseball. They played catch together, for instance.
Yes.
And Junichiro Koizumi was known to be a flamboyant one-liner entertainer, if you like. When the senior Koizumi met George W. Bush, by the way, the senior Koizumi, the retired politician now, doesn't have good command in English. Nonetheless, he said in a very much casual, frank manner to George W. Bush, Mr. President, you know High Noon, the cinema, the movie, High Noon, Gary Cooper, the sheriff, very courageous man, brave man, against gangs. He fought very much with a courage, and he won. You, Mr. President, you are Gary Cooper. You are that sheriff in High Noon.
Interesting.
That one, big laughter, big smile, and very much cozy, close relationship with George W. Bush. And Senior Koizumi looked a bit like not so much a politician, but an artist. I know that he reminded some in the United States of the conductor cum composer Bernstein. His hairdo appeared something like close to something like the one close to what Bernstein had. And on Sundays, the senior Koizumi spent a whole day alone in his official residence. By the way, he was not married. He was a single person, and so spent all day meeting no one. And many guessed what he was doing. The truth of the matter is he was immersed in music tunes such as Elvis Presley's or um, some opera music and so on. So he was an avid music lover. Politically speaking, what has he achieved? There has been very much harsh view voiced by one of the former foreign minister, Masahiko Komura, Mr. Komura. If you read his memoir, he was extremely critical, harsh against what Koizumi said and did. He went on to say the accomplishment, if there is any, for Mr. Koizumi, is the one that he picked up Shinzo Abe as his heir apparent. All the rest didn't mean anything. So that was one of the harshest critiques that Koizumi earned from his former colleagues. Now, the young Koizumi, he is good looking. If you ask women walking on the streets in Tokyo, do you think Mr. Koizumi is handsome, good looking? I would say 99 out of 100 would say, yes, he is good looking. So he is a good campaigner. He's a natural orator. But it's a long process. Well, compared to your elections in India and the elections now going on in the United States, it's packed, it's short, but nonetheless, each candidate is exposed to scrutiny after scrutiny by the members of the press. And Mr. Koizumi seems to be rather unable to sustain his agendas when pushed hard to be more articulate on certain things. So we'll see. But Koizumi remains popular, and I think he is either the most or the second most popular candidate at the moment.
Yeah. So so two other candidates, which actually the second most Koizumi-san, and the who is the first, like, country is thinking he can be the prime minister, and even your personal opinion, what country is thinking? Do you think the same?
I don't have a crystal ball, but once again, if you cite the results of the polls, the at the moment the most popular candidate is Mr. Ishiba. Shigeru is his first name. Shigeru Ishiba, who is among the most experienced members among the candidates as regards the number of elections that he has carried. And he was known to be an arch rival of Shinzo Abe. And he had famously a grudge with Shinzo Abe. And he did not hide his own critical views against Shinzo Abe. And the third candidate we are now talking about is the female candidate, Ms. Takaichi. And Takaichi and Sanae, her first name, right? And it's safe to say that she is a disciple, quote unquote, of the late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. When it comes to economic policy or fiscal policy, diplomacy, national security policy, Ms. Takaichi is on the same page, if Shinzo Abe were alive, with Shinzo Abe. So Ms. Takaichi is more popular among very conservative members of the LDP. Again, LDP, if I use an English term, is a quintessential broad church. Under its roof, there are a variety of political views. Some are extremely progressive, and others are very much conservative. Takaichi represents the conservative wing of the LDP. And for that matter as well, she is an heir to the late Prime Minister Abe.
So definitely, since the Indian will be watching this show, so we would love to know, what do you think that how the relation between India, Japan is going to be if one of these three, is selected by Japan?
There was a prolonged honeymoon period, wasn't it? Wasn't
It
there? Between your
was.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Shinzo Abe. I should say to your audience that I was deeply touched by what I saw in the state funeral. Prime Minister Modi, for the first time for any Indian Prime Minister, took a journey from India and came to Tokyo only to take part in the state funeral. There were many dignitaries and state leaders, heads of state, who joined the funeral. I was watching those people proceeding to lay flowers to the soul of the late Prime Minister Abe. On the front row sitting was Mrs. Abe, apparently devastated, and she appeared to be even unable to cry because she shed too much tears until that time already. And it was only Prime Minister Modi who came very in a quiet, reserved manner to Mrs. Abe, gently touched Mrs. Abe's back and touched Mrs. Abe's right shoulder on his own knees. And he was telling something, probably condolences to Mrs. Abe, and I saw Mrs. Abe doing like this with many tears. Narendra Modi was the only person who did such a very touching, thoughtful gesture, and I cannot forget that. Such being the very close, warm, soul-to-soul, heart-to-heart relationship between Modi and Abe, I don't think this could be repeated by any combination of the leaders from India and Japan. But it's important to remember the zeal, enthusiasm, and long-term vision that Shinzo Abe had and developed with Narendra Modi. Who would remember those emotional aspects of the India-Japan relationship? There aren't many. Takaichi, as I said, an heir to Abe, would certainly do something like that. A younger one called Mr. Kobayashi, Takayuki Kobayashi, also represents a conservative wing of the LDP, and he may perhaps likely do the same. But what's important is to quietly keep the good memories of the honeymoon period and proceed looking for the brighter future, if you like, between India and Japan. And what's most important, Nipur, may I say, is who could be the leader who could stay as long as possible. India is fast growing. What Shinzo Abe did with India was to invest in India's future, and the future is now. And next year, India is going to be even more important, even bigger. In order for Japan to have a very good strategic relationship with India, the Japanese Prime Minister has to be someone who can be in office for as long a period as possible. Shinzo Abe, in his second term, stayed in office for about 8 years, and that was a good length of period. And the next next prime minister, I hope, can stay longer than 3-4 years. And gradually she could develop very good relationship with your Prime Minister Modi.
Taking the legacy forward.
Yes. Looking forward. Yeah.
So the legacy of Abe-san and Mr. Modi and Mr. Abe, I hope that the next prime minister, whoever becomes, take it forward to a different level. Though, as you said, it's not possible to replace Abe-san, that the relation Mr. Modi and Mr. Abe had. It's a soul connection, but this is not possible. But at least the Abe-san left a legacy of the relation between India, Japan. So the next prime minister can take it to different level if they want.
Yes, let's hope so.
Yes. So Sensei, actually, I think you know that Mrs. Abe was in India recently, and she met Mr. Modi also. They had a wonderful, I saw that on Twitter and on news also, that she met, it was like a family thing, She went to India, she met Prime Minister. So it shows like how still they're connected, the family and the Abe family and Mr. Modi.
Yes, Mr. Modi spent not only with the late Prime Minister, but also with the Prime Minister's wife, Mrs. Abe, in their family villa that was close to the Lake Kawaguchi, from which you can see a beautiful vista of Mount Fuji. Narendra Modi, Prime Minister Modi, among Indian leaders, has been a rather exception in the sense that he was accepted, welcomed in Abe's family as a member of the extended family. And that legacy, if you call it a legacy, will continue for many, many years to come. If Narendra Modi is so caring about Mrs. Abe, it is all the more natural for Dr. Jaishankar, your external affairs minister, pays serious heed to Mrs. Abe as well, which is why he met Mrs. Abe in Delhi as well. And I hope that Mrs. Abe, upon her return to Tokyo, she said something like the following. She once again realized that the relationship the late husband developed with Mr. Modi and with the people in India should remain very much important. If I, that is to say, Mrs. Abe, could do anything further to further enrich the relationship, I must do a lot. So, in Tokyo, your audience should be aware that Mrs. Abe has been very close to 𝗧শ্যিবে George and Joyce 𝗧শ্যিবে, Mr. and Mrs. Ambassador, Indian ambassador from stationed in Tokyo. Joyce 𝗧শ্যিবে, Madam Ambassador, is an acclaimed painter, artist, and she put on display one of 3 actually pieces of her masterpiece of painting art. And there was a museum which put those pictures and the paintings on display. And I think it was on the 12th of September,
Yes.
Aki Abbe went to see Mr. and Mrs. 𝗧শ্যি𝗵𝗵𝗂𝗧 paintings in that museum. And I know that 𝗧শ্যি𝗵𝗵𝗂𝗧 and Joyce 𝗧শ্যি𝗵 met Aki Abbe in that museum.
Yes, that's where actually I also saw that, and it is so heartwarming that the relation between Abe family and the India. It's
Yes, it is, isn't it? Yes, it really is heartwarming.
yeah, it is, and of course I'm sure that you know that India loves Mr. Abe. We just love him.
Subscribe now and press the bell icon. Never miss an update.